G'day and welcome back to Liberty Chat, your weekly roundup of all things Liberty, Australian politics, and specifically about the Liberal Democrats. I'm your host, John Humphreys. And today is, what is today? Wednesday, the 18th of May. This is the last Liberty Chat we've got before the election coming up in 3 days' time. That also means that as of tonight, you're in the media blackout. So there will be no more political ads on your TVs and radios. Of course, since we're all just following the news via the internet, it's kind of irrelevant because the media blackout doesn't apply to the internet or print media. So there you go. But anyway, this is a weekly show, the last one before the election, but we're looking to keep it going. It's a weekly show, the Lib Dems podcast, every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. East Coast time. So apologies, Ian, and South Australians and WA. You'll have to adjust that. I'm sure you're used to doing that. So please join us if you're watching this as a pre-record later. Please do try to come along. 7:30 Wednesdays on YouTube, on Facebook, on the Lib Dems, Liberal Democrats platform. You can join in, ask some questions, make some cheeky comments, and Topher will chuck them up if they're sufficiently interesting or obnoxious or anything else. Yes, Danny, you're still seeing UAP ads today because the blackout only starts at the end of today. So as of midnight, I believe it's midnight tonight, the media blackout will begin. But please keep the comments coming, the questions coming. We'll try to answer them when we can and laugh at you if they're silly. Joining me today, some of our excellent lead Senate candidates. We have the person running the tech behind the scenes, our lead Senate candidate for Tasmania, Topher Field. We've got our lead Senate candidate for South Australia, Ian Marcos, and our lead Senate candidate for Victoria, David Limbrick. We expect Lady Liberty to join us later, but of course she will be fashionably late to make a dramatic entrance. So, gentlemen, let's go to the round table here, Topher, if you can take us there. No?
Happy to get us started. Oh, the round table, sorry. You want to go over here, like, you mean like this? Is that what you're talking about?
I do mean
I'll just shut up now. I thought you meant something different.
Well, I mean, if what you're thinking is more interesting, feel free. Anthony Bull has written a comment here reminding everyone to volunteer. You've only got a few days left. So ldp.org.au/volunteer. It would be great if we could cover as many bases as possible on the Saturday. But let's run around the circle and get the updates for what everyone has been up to for the last week, or what you've seen in politics, or what you would like to talk about in politics. Let's go clockwise as I see you, which I think is how everyone sees you. So that's Topher. What's up in Tasmania?
It's been a lot of fun, actually. Tasmania is the place to be. We can see that by the fact that the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has chosen to campaign here yet again. Is it just me? It might be because I'm campaigning here and I'm noticing it a little bit more than what I have in the past. But has Tasmania been in the news a lot more this election than previous elections? Is that my imagination, or is that actually a thing? I'm really not sure. But today, if you've been watching the news, you might have seen Scott Morrison decided to tackle a kid and then go for a romp in the hay. Actually, sorry, I probably should be more careful how I say that. I don't want to get sued. He was doing a press event, and they, for whatever reason, some genius decided it was a great idea to have him playing footy with a bunch of children. I don't know, they were trying to put him up against his sort of intellectual equals. I assumed that was the focus there. Anyway, he ended up bulldozing one of the kids by accident, and then of course had to make it look all fun. So he ended up sort of hugging the kid, and it all got a bit weird. And, you know, again, just, is this the best we can do? You know, we've got a Prime Minister and a leader of the opposition who just somehow managed to keep embarrassing themselves. Anyway, look, that's an aside. That's not really a substantive issue. What we have had in the last week in Tasmania is about 100,000 flyers have hit letterboxes in the last week. We've had a grand total of about 140 to 150,000 flyers in total, and about 100,000 of them have reached people's letterboxes in the last week. So people are searching. We can see in the search results online that more people than previously are searching for the Liberal Democratic Party in Tasmania. They are looking, they're checking us out, having a look to see who we are. Now, I'm not saying that that'll necessarily be enough to get me elected, but it certainly means that the party is, our profile is going up very, very quickly. I've got some amazing volunteers, some absolutely incredible people that have done some really hard yards. And I want to give a shout out to the Morris family. They published a newspaper down here called the Aussie Battler. self-published, did all the work themselves, actually did a really good quality job. They printed 80,000 copies, and they, as a family with just a handful of other volunteers, have basically single-handedly put all of those into letterboxes, and along the way have helped to distribute my flyers and the flyers of some other parties as well. So there's just some incredible people, incredible sort of networks of people here in Tassie that are just doing the hard yards, really doing the boring, as I've been saying for a couple of weeks now. We've got to do the boring, and there are some really amazing people in Tassie doing exactly that.
And where are you now, by the way? You've been doing laps of the state. I believe it's small.
Yeah.
One lap.
Look, thankfully I drive a diesel, and therefore one tank of fuel gets me about 1,000 Ks, which is enough to do an entire lap of Tassie and then some. But no, I've certainly had some long hours. Today I delivered over 1,500 leaflets myself into letterboxes. I'm in Hobart at the moment. Yesterday I was back up in Launceston and actually nearly into Burnie, up in the northwest. Just all the logistics. You guys know how it is, but I guess people that haven't been involved in a campaign before, a huge amount of a campaign is actually just logistics, getting the right stuff into the right people's hands in the right places at the right times. That's a huge part of the campaign. And so the last couple of days has been spent on a lot of logistics, and there's a lot more coming in between now and Election Day on Saturday. And
are there places or times where people can find you over the next couple of days? I mean, if you can drag yourself away from the logistics, are you going to be possible?
I don't have any set times at this point because my priority is the logistics. I will on Saturday be on polling booths, probably some of the busier ones in the centre of Hobart. That's sort of more likely where I'm going to gravitate towards. But then again, that's where all the other candidates will be as well, and I might find them all a bit obnoxious, so I might end up heading off somewhere else to find something a bit quieter. I will be publishing on social media as I make these decisions about where I'm going to be, so you can come and find me, give me a hard time if you feel like it. That's all good, all's fair in love and politics. So yeah, at this point in time, my plans are fluid because my focus is just equipping the amazing volunteers that I've got.
Yeah, I have been noticing these videos you've been putting out semi-regularly. I don't know if they're all out yet. If they are, I haven't seen them yet.
No, not all of them. There's still another 3 to go on Facebook, 4 to go if you're on other platforms.
All right, if you haven't seen those yet, check them out. They're a nice new summary of the Freedom Manifesto, the 10-point Freedom Manifesto, which hopefully, if you're listening to this, you've already read or seen. If you haven't, go check out ldp.org.au/freedom. It's the best policy manifesto at this election and probably for this century in federal politics, at least. Go and check it out. And if you're too lazy to read a couple of pages, then you're a lazy bastard. But if you are, Topher has summarized them all down nice and shortly for you in those videos. So go check them out. Moving around, Ian, how is the wonderful state of South Australia, the only free state? How's the campaign
going? Really well. It's a very good campaign so far, actually, considering that we've only had a short lead-in time frame. But as I keep saying to everyone, we're in the influence game, and to try and ramp that up within the last few days. So a key strategy has been to try and get as many volunteers as we can on pre-polls, and I've been out into the business community, trying to get them on side, talk to them about the merits of our policies, in particular around the economy, taxation, small business, which they really, really kind of positively respond to. So I think the main focus has been trying to get that message out to them, because they're busy in their day-to-day work. They don't surf the net. They don't get onto our website to read the manifesto or anything like that. So it's trying to get in front of them and explain that to them so that, they get the understanding of what the benefit is to them individually and their workers at their workplace. So then it's also leaving the how to vote cards so that they can distribute them to their workers, which is better than probably, in a lot of circumstances, and standing in line with a bunch of other people at a pre-poll and trying to compete for somebody's attention. So when you turn up to a business, you've got them, and you've got them captured there for the 15, 30 minutes that you want to spend with them, and really deliver that message. So that's been important. Some of our competitors have been getting, a bit of what I call the mainstream media or corporate media attention. We had tried, and even though I know a lot of the journos are just not interested, and that seems to be the same for a lot of the smaller parties. So I did come across some polling, internal polling that the majors have been doing, and an outcome from some of their focus groups. The Libs in particular are very, very concerned about us. We have drawn box A on the ballot, and there was a bit of media around them having a bit of a sook saying, that obviously with the name, that people may get confused, whatever, but I'd take it as, well, they're talking about us, so they must be slightly concerned there. Labor have indicated that they've done some polling, and so have the Greens. And interesting with the Greens, their polling on Xenophon says that he's picking up about 1 or 2% only. However, there was another poll that was done that indicated that he's right up there for a quota. So who knows in respect to that. So main competition-wise, obviously, that we've been dealing with are the One Nation, United Australia Party and Xenophon here. But I really got to thank the campaign team here. They're a bunch of young, keen, energetic people, and they've done a fantastic job, and so have some of the other candidates. So they've really stepped up, considering, I've come in and I haven't had that benefit of coming in off the long run. So, I really want to acknowledge them, and we're in with a real shot here.
So I just have to remember to take myself off mute. No, I think you really are. Although I think we've got probably several good shots coming up this weekend. It's going to be fascinating to see it play out. You mentioned the name confusion. People who've listened to me rant about that would know that I don't think it's just name confusion that's going on there. I think there is positive cachet to the concept of liberalism. But I'll tell you a little anecdote from 2001, where one of the first ever interviews, when the party was first started, our first ever election campaign, ACT Legislative Assembly election. And it was one of the first questions asked. They said, don't you think there's going to be name confusion? And my response back there, I think, should be the same response we still say now. No, not at all. I don't think any of our voters are dumb enough to accidentally vote for the Liberals. And I still think that's a true statement. The thing you mentioned about the missing media for minor parties is certainly a phenomenon. I think sometimes people from outside of active politics or from major parties can underestimate the degree to which there is effectively a media blackout on minor parties. The focus on Morrison versus Albanese is so all-encompassing. I think it's not a credit to our media that they behave like that. It becomes self-reinforcing. It's pretty hard to know what we can do to change that, other than watch with glee as alternative media keeps popping up all around us. The mob down at Discernible, they're not paying me to say that. The Good Source, Dave Pello, not paying me. Topher, when he's not running for us. So it's great to see Rukshan, of course, Avi, the rest of them. It's good to see that old media.
I'll tell you what I did do, though, John, and I do like poking the stupid, but I sent via the mobile phone, obviously, to some of the sitting Liberal members here and some of the state Libs, with a photograph of our one-page policy manifesto, and saying, years ago, these probably would have been your policies. And you should have seen the reaction.
You got some reactions?
Oh, they know. They know. And they know that they've been infested by, the wets, the Libs, right through their party. And I know secretly they really admire our policy manifesto, because, as I said years ago, it could have been theirs.
We get this a lot, and we have for years now. Plenty of Liberals, not all of them. There's plenty of Liberals that have a different set of politics. Some of the inner city ones, perhaps. But plenty of Liberals have been approaching us for well over a decade, saying that I actually, secretly, I actually vote for you guys. Publicly, I'm a Liberal, but privately, I'm a Lib Dem. We get that a lot. But yes, interesting. David, I think, just to throw back to that missing media, before I bring you in for Victoria, but I think your experience in sending out press releases is indicative here. We're a sitting MP until you had to step down to run for the Senate. So you had some cachet in a crossbench that mattered, in a situation where you were de facto leader of the opposition. And still, what was your success rate at sending out press releases for those 3.5 years?
Approximately zero. Press releases are a waste of time in my view and in my team's view. But we knew right from the start, in the very first week after I got elected, I sat down with my team, including Gavin, my wonderful media advisor, and we discussed the next election right at the start after I got elected, and Gavin told me, and I totally believed him, and he was right. He said, when you come to the next election campaign, the mainstream media will ignore you. They will just go after the major parties. So you need to spend your time between now and the election building up your social media profile, your relationships with alternative media and all of that sort of stuff. And I did exactly that. And, my social media profile is bigger than the opposition leader now. So we don't even need mainstream media to get large audiences. I can publish some live stream of me having a chat with someone and it can get tens of thousands of views. We have been lucky in that, not lucky in, I would say, well managed that Sky has been very kind to us. They've invited me on pretty much every week. I went on last Sunday onto Outsiders. I've been invited on to Bernardi this Friday night. But that's a long-term relationship that's evolved there as well. That's not just something that's fallen in our lap. We've done a lot of work to develop that. We get on, Channel 9 and some of these other things, and we get in the newspapers occasionally. But a lot of what we're doing depends on, alternative media, social media, and these sort of things. So, and that works, I think. So, it's amazing, like over the last few weeks when we've been doing the pre-poll, how many people have come up to me and said, oh yeah, I follow you on Twitter, or I follow you on Instagram, or I saw you on Sky. So many people have come up and said that to me. So, it's good that we're actually reaching people.
I mean, I guess this very podcast is kind of an example of going around the mainstream media. We are going directly. Yeah. I'm seeing lots of comments come in, and a lot of people, by the way, thank you to those people who are saying they're volunteering to Melsa and others. Appreciate it. Thanks to those people who are sharing the stories that as you're at pre-poll, the Liberals are telling you that they've actually already voted for David Limbrick or the rest of our lead Senate candidates.
I've had so many Liberal volunteers tell me that. I won't name any of them, but yeah, a lot have said that they really admire what we've done in Victoria, and they're supporting us. So we've had a lot of support on the ground. Quite surprising, actually. I've never seen anything like it at pre-poll before. I've done a lot of how to vote handing out at elections before. Usually I'm struggling to get them to even recognize us, as a name, as a party. But now I'm getting people come up and, ask me for selfies and stuff. And, like they know us before. And they come straight over, grab our how to vote and just go straight in and vote. They don't even bother with the other people handing out how to vote. That I've never seen that before.
No, this is a whole new election for us. I mean, we're running, as you guys would know, more than twice as many candidates as we ever have before. 100 lower house candidates. It's the first time that we've covered enough lower house seats to technically be able to form government. Not that I think that's very likely, but still, it's. I think it's been a great ground game. That's good alliteration, but bad pronunciation by me there. So, David, while we're on the topic of alt media, I'll throw this. I was going to mention this later, but it fits here. Someone mentioned they're going to be watching Discernible for election night coverage. Feel free to do that if you like. The other option that I'm actually plugging now is The Good Source. Will also have election night coverage. I'm going to be a panelist on that, repping the Lib Dems. There'll be George Christensen, cameo appearances from Alexandra Marshall, Topher. David, hopefully you can duck in. I think Alex Antic and a few of the good people left in the Liberal Party, and Malcolm Roberts, a few others. So it's going to be a good night. So keep maybe Discernible and The Good Source both open, and we will try to entertain you over to our side of that ratings war.
So I'm partying that night. We've got a party in South Yarra, I think. On Turek Road. But there's parties going all over the state because we've got so many members now and volunteers now that we can't all have them in one location, which is a great problem to have. But I have agreed to do live crosses with Discernible, and I'm sure The Good Source will figure out how to do live crosses with me as well. So even though I'm not hosting any of these shows, I will take part and give my report. I don't promise to be sober, but I do promise to be having a good time. And it should be fun on Saturday night.
I think we've already arranged. We're going to do our live crosses as late as possible to make sure we get you at your drunkest for maximum entertainment value. That's the same thing we promised Topher. So that'll be a good one. I do like your confidence in just telling a live stream where you're going to be election night. I don't know whether you should expect to be gate crashed now, but we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, I've been stealing your air, David. What's been happening in the world of Victoria and your campaign trails?
Yeah, so I've been going out all over the state and meeting up with our lower house candidates and doing campaigning. And I've got to say, our lower house candidates in Victoria, our House of Reps candidates, they are absolutely spectacular. Like these people are some of the highest quality go-getters that I've ever seen involved with a party. They are just absolutely spectacular. I went out to Warrnambool and Portland with Amanda Mead and did some pre-polling out there and met a bunch of people. Amanda is an awesome candidate for Warren. Then we went to Ballarat and I did campaigning with Julia McGrath. We met some local activist groups. We got on television. We had a fundraising event. She's an absolutely awesome candidate for Ballarat. I've been out to Flinders with Kristen Abraham. She is the most effective how to vote hander outer that I've ever seen. She said she's used her skills as she learnt as doing street sales, and she's very, very effective at getting how to vote cards in people's hands and talking to people. She's very, very good. Today I was down with Matt Ford down at Higgins. I mean, that was great as well. The common theme that I'm seeing is that our brand recognition is higher than it's ever been. People, like when we post on social media that I'm at a certain location, people come down to say hello to us and take photos and stuff, which I've never seen before. I'm a Z grade celebrity now, as the Labor Party says about me. People are really, when they come and support us, they're really appreciative. Like they come and thank us for the work that we've done over the last 2 years. They acknowledge it, they appreciate it. And a bunch of them have been saying, I want to help out on Saturday, right? And we had that today. A person came up and but I mean, even people from other volunteers from UAP and even the Liberal Party and some of these other minor parties have been coming up and talking to us and thanking us for the work that we've done over the last couple of years. So, I'm really blown away by the recognition and support that we've been getting. And, it makes me feel optimistic about the future of the party. Like, if our goal was to grow support and recognition of the party, then I think we've already achieved that goal. The next step is, whether that's enough to get people elected. Well, we'll have to wait a few weeks before we find that out. But certainly we've grown, the number of supporters, the number of people who know about us, and the number of people who care about the things that we care about. These have all already happened. So, as far as I'm concerned, we're already partly successful. But of course, we need to get people elected. And are we successful enough to get people elected? Well, we don't know just yet. But I think we're on the right track.
No. This is quite right. It'll be interesting to see. We may have an indication on Saturday night, although David might be right that we won't know the final outcome for a long time. But Saturday night will certainly rule some options in and out. So that stay tuned. Join us on those election coverage. But the second part of this is a long-term battle, right? The battle of ideas does not end after one election. And it can be tempting to be fixated on the election that's right in front of you. You always hear people tell you that what you're going to do in the next week is the most important thing you ever will in politics. But political ideas is a long-term game. It took, 70 years after he wrote the Communist Manifesto, before the Soviet Union existed. It took decades after Keynes wrote his works before it started being properly copied. It took decades after Friedman wrote his works. It is a long-term project to shift ideas, and we are in it for the long term. We did not show up recently, discover the word freedom sold well and put it up on billboards. We were saying freedom 21 years ago when we were founded, and many of us were saying freedom before the party was founded, working in activism in other ways. So this has been a long-term project for us, and it's certainly going to keep going well after this election. And one of the most encouraging things about this election is the energy and all of the new, very high-quality people. Some of the commenters were saying that, and David, you were saying it. And other states have also remarked that the new candidates we've got on board and the volunteers, A-grade stuff. So we have expanded the Liberty movement. We've expanded awareness of the Liberty movement. And no matter what happens on Saturday, we're not going anywhere. The Liberty movement rolls forward. So
all right, can I jump in? I've been watching the comments as they've gone through. There are some questions around above the line or below the line when voting in the Senate. The reality is it doesn't actually make anywhere near as much difference as some people seem to think it does. The only reason you would choose to vote below the line is if you saw a difference between the individual candidates within the party, whichever party. So 2 instances where that might be useful to you would be something like the Tasmanian situation where we have Erica Betts in number 3 for the Liberal Party. You might decide that you would never vote for the Liberals, of course, but you do want to see Erica Betts, or you want to send a message by giving him a bit of love. Same with Amanda Stoker in Queensland at number 3 for the Liberals. These are the sorts of situations where you might go below the line. If there's no difference in your mind between the individual candidates within a party, I would recommend voting above the line, but John obviously wants to chip in on that too.
Well, I was just going to throw a third one in there, that if you're I probably should, because they're running against our party, of course, as are all of these people. So these are all just later preferences. Number 1 for the Lib Dem.
Yeah.
Of course,
Correct.
If you're a One Nation person in Queensland, some people might gravitate towards George Christensen, who's number 3 on the ticket. So if you wanted to vote for the person, not the party, you'll have to vote below the line. But just to reiterate what Tom said, realistically, under the new voting system, there's not much reason to vote below the line anymore.
No.
It's probably not going to change up the order of the candidates, and you can just vote for the parties with your own preference above the line. But do it your way.
Yep.
Any other questions coming through, Topher, that I didn't see?
Yeah, look, there's been a few people urging us to, quick cut the waffle. What are your policies, mate? Go to ldp.org.au/freedom and you will find our policies. We don't come on here every week and say the same thing over and over again. We've covered our policies in great detail. You can find them online. You can go to the Topher Field Facebook page and find my own videos about them. You can go to the LDP website and find LDP official videos about them. Do a little bit of freaking research before you start whinging online, please.
Yeah, we do not just repeat the same sentences. We do not just repeat the same sentences. We do not. I probably shouldn't push that too far, but no, that's true.
We do not repeat the same sentences.
We do not repeat the same sentences.
Well, let's repeat slightly a policy area that we did discuss a previous week, but now we've got a new spin to put on it. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, we discussed Labor's, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Labor's housing policy, where they're offering to very generously buy 40% of all of our houses, so that we're only 40% of the way to socialism. Now the Liberals have since come out, since the last episode, come out with their policy. I would say it is marginally less bad than Labor's policy, but their policy is to allow people to dip into their super fund to be able to use that to put a deposit on a home. Look, I think super should be voluntary anyway, so I give them the half a tick there for allowing us a little bit more access to our own money, or money that they pretend is ours, and now they give it to us on one condition. So there's half a step forward. But in terms of this being a solution to housing affordability, I'll give you a little factoids, people. In the last year, house prices went up about 24% and wages went up 2%. So that gives you an indication of the housing affordability situation we're in. What do you think? Labor's policy of increasing demand or Liberal policy of increasing demand? Which one of them is going to work?
Can I chime in? Sorry, no, someone else first.
Yeah, well, as the ex-CEO of Master Builders, I know a little bit about housing affordability and housing. So what I'm amazed at is both of these major parties, not one of them have just talked about cutting the damn taxes and charges on housing, which are about 30% on the price of you building a new home, and the over-regulation. So the National Construction Code, for example, the amount of regulatory burden that is not needed in this country would remove thousands and thousands of dollars off of building a house, and no one talks about that. So they, then talk about Albo virtually wanting to be a landlord. or Morrison still saying, well, maybe it is your money. Obviously, it is your money, but you can use it earlier. What about just cutting the taxes and the over-regulation? And that will have a greater impact. And I'll give you one example. People have to do a compulsory energy efficiency test and rating on every new home as it's being built. So not only do you have to pay for that, then these fools come back and say, oh, well, you'll need double glazing. So, these first home buyers or the new potential home buyer will pay thousands and thousands of dollars for double glazing and then put an evaporative air conditioner in the house. And what's the first thing you do with an evaporative air conditioner? You open the windows.
Can I just say, this is perhaps the most frightening sentence that has come out of my mouth since I threw my hat in the ring politically. But if I had to choose between the Liberal or Labor housing policies, I would choose the Greens. Is that not the most terrifying sentence you could possibly say? That the Greens Party, because it actually involves building inexpensive housing, that they actually somehow have stumbled on, broken clock style, the least bad of those options. That is a terrifying indictment on the major parties.
Look, I agree with that. I'd word it slightly differently. I would say that any policy that is a demand-side policy is not even attempting to be a solution, right? So Labor and Liberal have not come up with even an attempted solution. They've come up with something that they think they can trick people with. Meanwhile, it's just going to boost house prices even further. So it's not even an attempt. Now, I think the Greens solution is probably it's one of the worst solutions of things that would actually work, but it is a solution that actually addresses the actual problem. And the problem is there needs to be more housing. So you can have more housing by cutting the cost of producing housing. And Ian's spoken about that eloquently, not just now, for years, by the way. If you just Google his name and housing, you will just find streams of articles linking to him saying, cut stamp duty on new houses and similar comments. So that's one solution. The other one is the green solution, just have the government build the houses. And of course, as most libertarians listening along would already be screaming at their TV sets, relax the zoning laws in the cities and relax land use laws on the outskirts of cities so that you can simply build more. And those are all supply side solutions. Of those 4 different supply side solutions, I think the Greens one is the worst of those 4, but at least it's on the list. Liberal and Labour's solutions aren't solutions. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, I'd say, housing affordability has been a big concern for us in state parliament in Victoria since Tim and I got elected. And look, I would say that most of the supply side issues are really state government issues. There's not really a lot of stuff that the federal government can get involved in, like things like stamp duty, things like land release. All these things are state government issues. Look, I don't like Labor's federal policy, own 60% and you'll be happy. I don't like that at all. I don't like the idea of getting into a contract between the banks and the government. I mean, a 3-way contract between the banks and the government. It just sounds like, who wants to do that, right? It just sounds terrible. The Liberals' proposal of releasing part of your super is less bad because, I like the idea of increasing the number of ways that you can use your super because it's your money in principle. So I don't see any way that we could oppose what they're proposing, but at the same time, I don't really see it as much of a solution other than, being able to access some of your own money, which, might be helpful for some people. I think there's some problems with regards to, they've said that when you sell your house, you have to pay back whatever you took out of your super plus the capital gains. I'm a little bit concerned about how that might affect future markets and, upgrades and that sort of thing. I think it's a bit unknown how that might actually work. And, are we really going to have this policy, 10, 15, 20 years in the future when this happens? And yeah, like there's a comment here about will Albanese pay 40% of the rates? Very good question. Well, if they own 40% of the property, maybe they should pay 40% of the rates and 40% of the insurance and all the other stuff. But I'm guessing you already know what the answer to that is, and I'm guessing it's no. I've been trying to popularize for a couple of years now, Limbrick's law, but no one picked it up. Basically, the idea is that if you have to ask who's paying for something, the answer is most likely it's you.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who's paying for any of this stuff, it's going to be you. I can guarantee it.
All right, write that down, someone. Limbrick's law. We should popularize that now. Get that going. It's a good point about they actually incentivize you to do all your house improvements before you move in, because before you move in, all the house improvements get the government to pay 40%. After you move in and you improve the house, I assume they're going to make you pay for all of the improvements. But anyway, that aside.
Just briefly, Tracy asked a good question here. What happens if the value of the property goes down? And some people say, oh, that doesn't happen in Australia. We've had a rising property market for how long? Go back to what David said before about the ratio between income and housing prices. And the fact that, by the way, my wife, she's a mortgage broker, so she has a lot of friends in the industry. The clearance rate in capital cities this last week has dipped below 50%. And that is an indicator of serious trouble for real estate agents trying to sell houses at current prices. So make that what you will. I'm not making a prediction, but past performance is not a guarantee of future performance. I'm just going to say that.
Well, also the Victorian budget does make a prediction, and this was before the high inflation rates and the interest rates started going up. They put the numbers together and they predicted housing prices will go down 4% over the next 12 months, and that was before the inflation and interest started to move. So we will see. That will be interesting. I think David implied or hinted at an interesting point about the Liberal policy. I actually support the Liberal policy as super reform. I do not support it as housing policy. So yes, thank you. Giving us a bit of our super back. It's a tick there, but it does not solve the problem it's pretending to solve. It's being sold under false pretenses. And
I agree. We have to support it on principle because it's giving access to your own money. But will it solve any housing problems? No.
And of course, one of the 10 points in our 10-point freedom manifesto, superannuation should be voluntary. It is basically a rort. It's a very expensive rort that funnels money into super funds, a lot of those union-controlled super funds that then engage in a lot of very woke capitalism, trying to force companies to be more and more woke. And we all have to fund it. It's compulsory by the government, including the Liberal government, forcing us to fund more and more of that bullshit too. Put a finer point on it. Anyway, change of pace for us. We've got an election coming up in a couple of days, fellas. I'm not sure if you're aware.
What, really?
Yeah, it's a true story. Now everyone's focused on Albanese versus Morrison. Looks like Albanese's edging it, but what a lot of people, media isn't interested in, but what I am, and maybe you guys are, is the balance of power in the Senate. So winning government, that's nice. That's nice if what you want is just to get a higher paycheck and to feel important. And that seems to be the primary motivation from the two major parties. If your goal was to pass legislation, of course, you need to be interested in the Senate. Otherwise, you've just got a fancy green chair and a higher pay packet, but no new policy. So this balance of power in the Senate will be an interesting one. On the assumption that Labor gets up, it's currently looking, based on, if we just extrapolate forward from the past, it's looking like the Greens may end up with a total of 12 senators, which would be the largest, best performance in the Senate for a third party since literally ever. Better than the Democrats ever did, better than the DLP ever did. So it would be history making. And there's a chance they may end up with balance of power. I didn't mean, I should have done a trigger warning at the beginning of this, mentioning that it was a horror story. But that is something that I think hasn't been given enough attention in the media. I don't know if you guys have been following along on this possibility. Of course, we would like to be having the balance of power there instead. But any thoughts on the potential impact of a Greens party that controls a future Labor Party potentially in the Senate?
Listen, only a fool would try to make political predictions, which is why I'm going to give you mine. Which is the Greens are not getting 6 seats in this election. Not happening. The Greens are being pumped up by the mainstream media. I'm seeing a lot of the hallmarks that I saw when I was on the ground in 2016 prior to the election of Trump. I don't believe the polling is even close to accurate. That's not to say that Labor won't win, but I don't believe the polls are giving us an accurate story at all. And I think for the same reasons that the polls didn't give an accurate story prior to the Trump win in 2016, which is that the people who are voting one way want to shout it from the rooftops, and the people voting the other way want to be very quiet about it, and that skews the polls. The Greens are not getting 6 Senate seats in this election. I will plant my flag on that prediction. The Greens may increase their number because they've only got 3 existing senators at risk. Is it 4? Okay, I've misread that. Okay, my bad. Well, in that case, I don't think they are going to increase their number. I don't think they're going to get more than 4 senators up, because I think between UAP, One Nation, and especially us, and especially with David in the upper house in Victoria, I think between those parties we're looking at least 2, if not 3. I think Pauline Hanson will comfortably get a full quota in Queensland, and they'll be looking at potentially getting a 2nd senator up there, which of course we want Campbell Newman instead to get the 6th spot up there. But no, I cannot see the Greens increasing their stranglehold. Will they have the balance of power? Well, that comes down to the other numbers and what Liberal and Labor Party get.
They might pick up one here. They lost it at the last election, and they're pretty strong on the ground here. Unfortunately, they got a lot of people supporting them, and the thought here is that they probably will get that seat back. But this is only my opinion, but they are successful to the extent they are because I think in particular that the Liberal government has been too gutless to take them on. And particularly with the climate matter, climate wars, they're signing net zero, and I know they don't believe in it. Everyone knows they don't believe in it. And yet they try and argue, put themselves in a position where they try to please everybody. And instead of standing up and having a spine and arguing for what they believe in and, their conviction, they don't do it. And the Greens get away with things, time after time after time. And there's never been anyone with the guts to take them on in that party. They certainly aren't now. So therefore, they can run their scare campaigns. They can talk about the climate emergency and all the rest of it, and continue their march through all the institutions and indoctrinating the kids at the schools and whatever they do. And the Liberals have just been pathetically weak.
It is an interesting point you raised there. It's in a different context. It's something that I often repeat. It's pointless trying to outgreen the Greens. They are always going to be more green than you. They are always willing to. Pointless trying to outspend socialists. They're always going to take whatever you spend and double it. They win that argument. I also have argued it's pointless trying to out Pauline. It's pointless trying to out Clive, right? You've got to be what you are, the best you can be. Don't try to be a pale imitation of what someone else already is. And the idea of the Liberals trying to sell themselves as light Greens, I think it was a hiding to nothing. Clearly, they were doing it to try and defend the inner city seats from teal independents. But that seems like a very strange strategy, because if the trend around the Western world is any guide, they're going to lose those seats eventually. So it doesn't seem like a very smart strategy. I agree with you there. So interestingly, Topher, you're quite bullish. My question was actually aimed at getting your opinions on the impact of the Greens and how good or bad they would be as balance of power. But you've turned it into another question that I was going to ask anyway, so I'll just roll with the punches. And that was about predictions. You're quite bullish, Topher, on those predictions.
We are okay. So we're definitely going to see Pauline Hanson get re-elected. That I think is a given. I haven't seen the betting odds on that, but if they're longer than about $1.20, then I'd probably stick some money on it. Although I'm not actually sure I legally can because I'm running. But anyway, that's another story. No, she's getting a seat. The question is who else gets a seat. I do think the 6th seat in Queensland will be up for grabs. I think Hanson will get probably the 5th or maybe even the 4th. The 6th seat will be up for grabs, and Campbell Newman will be in the running for that. I'm not going to try and predict which way that will go. I think David Limbrick is going to put in a really good showing in Victoria. Ian, you've got the benefit of the #1 spot on the Senate ballot ticket in South Australia. That by itself is not likely to be enough, but in conjunction with some profile and I think a bigger protest vote against the major parties than what we've ever seen in Australia before, I think I think we're in with a chance there. I'd say a slim one, but a chance. I'd say the chances in Tasmania are extremely slim, but the chances in Queensland, the chances in Victoria are, to me, for the freedom-friendly minor parties and for us as part of that mix, I think are looking very good.
I don't know, Tofu, you might be underestimating our Tasmanian candidate. He tells me that he's great. He tells me he's the best we've ever had.
He said the same thing to me. I don't trust him. Nah. Did you know he's a failed actor? Have you heard that? He's a failed actor. You can't trust failed actors.
Well, I don't trust successful actors. Failed actors, I might trust a bit more. I'll pick you up on something a little bit. I don't want to get too nerdy about this, but to get 4 right of centre senators up, you need the right of politics to be getting about 55% of the two-party preferred, two-wing preferred vote. If this election is going to be won by Labor, the idea that you're going to get 4 right of centre senators up in any state, it's doable, but a lot of things have to go right. That is not an easy assumption to make.
I disagree that the voting public view us as right of centre, and nor should they, because we're not. We're a freedom party, not a right of centre party. I think when you look at the way that people's heads, with where people's heads are at, especially in Victoria, having been through what they've been through in the last 2 years, this is going to be very, very different. I don't think you can use the past form guide to inform how people are going to vote or how they are going to assess where their vote is going. It's entirely different. We have the most educated voting public we've ever had. Now, not by a huge margin, but we have it.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Kate has mentioned that she's in the waiting room and she might not have long, so maybe we should shuffle her into the room.
Okay. Yes, let's do that. Sorry, Kate, I didn't see you there. You actually had popped up behind other things on my screen. I do apologize, Kate.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Kate, Lady Liberty, how you doing?
Good. I'm just streaming to you live from my local gun range, actually. I had a meet and greet with me tonight. Lots of people came in to have a chat and learn about the Lib Dems. So a little bit different, but what would you expect from the Liberal Democrats?
So I do want to come to you in a second. Wait, which way should I point on here? I do want to come to you in a second to ask about the WA campaign and all things Lady Liberty. But just before, let's round out this conversation. We were just having a quick chat about some predictions in the Senate. And Topher was predicting that we were going to clean up with 12 senators in our own right. Quite bullish. Ian was a bit more sanguine about the potential for the Greens to get up. Remember that they only need, if history is a guide, you need about 8%. And the Greens are polling at 13%. So if that's an accurate guide, then we may be in for trouble. But David, I know I don't think you want to make predictions, but since we're going around in the circle here, David, do you want to be on the hook for a prediction, or do you want to just tell me to piss off? Or has your screen frozen? Because that is an awkward.
Okay, hang on. There we go. Okay, how's that?
All right.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah, look, I am nowhere near as optimistic as Topher. I think that what John's been saying about the Greens and holding the balance of power is totally possible. That's actually one of the things that convinced me to run for the Senate, because we need to disrupt what the Greens are doing. Now, let's be clear about who to blame here. The Liberal Party and the Greens did a deal to change the voting system that they knew would end up in a permanent embrace between the Labor Party and the Greens. Eventually, Labor Party was smart enough to know that that was a very, very bad idea, and they opposed it. So we need to be clear about who to blame here. It's the Liberal Party and the Greens, not the Labor Party. But that said, I am optimistic about a very high vote for non-Liberal Labor Greens. I am reasonably optimistic in Victoria, but we'll wait and see what happens here. Other states also, we've got a chance. But long term, if the Greens are not disrupted somehow, and primarily we're the only ones really that can disrupt them, then Australia is in deep, deep shit, I think. It doesn't matter who gets in government. If the Greens hold the balance of power in the Senate, It's terrible. Now, there's some questions here about are all LDP members, Liberal Party defectors and stuff. I have never been a blue socialist. I would never be a blue socialist. I've never been involved with the Liberal Party. So, and I don't know about you, Kate. I'm pretty sure you haven't been involved with them either.
No, and not the shooters and fishers either, for the record.
Yeah. So, no, I've never been involved with the Liberal Party. No. So some of us have been, but many of us haven't. Look, yes. So on the one hand, I'm a little bit pessimistic about how popular the Greens are. On the other hand, I've been very heartened by going out to these pre-polls and seeing the support that we've got. Whether that translates into what we need in Victoria, well, that's up to the people watching this. That's up to the volunteers. That's up to everyone. It's not over yet. So don't give up. You need to fight this. So, yeah, it's up to you.
The point you were making before about the reason we're in this situation, you would have heard me rant about this before, but it was Turnbull and the Greens, but I repeat myself, introduced the voting laws. The consequence of that is the Greens are very likely to win a seat in each state until something fundamental changes. And as you would have heard me say, that shows you how important it is that something fundamental has to change. Because we do not want the Greens to continually get those 12 seats and hold the balance of power. We need another party to disrupt and hold that balance of power. The Greens, when they rose, they didn't really steal a lot of seats off the Liberals, by the way. They mostly stole Labor's third. Labor used to consistently get 3. Now they consistently get 2 and the Greens get 1. So that left block is still 3. It just shuffled up who got it. And we could be
Labor
seeing...
hates them. Labor hates them.
As they should. But we could be seeing a somewhat similar phenomenon on the right now. Topher, I agree we're not a right-wing party, but I disagree with you when you say that other people don't see it as us as such. I do think that's how we've been pigeonholed by most people. But just to get to this end of this point, is what we could be seeing is the Liberals consistently starting to lose their third senator in each election, and that one going to what I think you dubbed a freedom-friendly minor party. I think you came up with that term.
I will wear that.
If that does happen, that will be significantly, fundamentally changing the way the Senate looks. And then it just comes down to a race about whether the real Freedom Party wins it or whether one of the pretenders sneak in front of us.
Yeah, and can I say, if the Greens do happen to snatch a full set of Senate seats, I'm not going to promise to eat my hat because my hat gets really sweaty and it's disgusting. I will be surprised, I will say that, but also it will continue to come at the expense of Labor. I don't believe that Labor Greens combined are going to be able to seize 4 Senate seats for the same reason, John, that you expressed skepticism about the so-called right seizing 4. It's a very, very unlikely outcome.
Yeah, Tassie or South Australia could be different. So, Kate, what's your predictions on how's the Senate going to look after this election?
Well, I've been asked this question a lot in WA, and it's a very interesting market because we've got United Australia Party running here, but Clive Palmer, very unpopular, very divisive, not well liked among the great people of Western Australia. So I really feel like it comes down to the people, what they want on the day, but we're in the mix, I would say. I don't know. I don't like predicting things, but it's been a fascinating campaign over here, and all eyes will turn west on election night. I believe that the election will be decided in Western Australia for the first time in a long time, so you guys can stay up late and be talking to me and see how we're going on Saturday night.
Well, I probably should have mentioned this to you and to Ian when we weren't just live, streaming to YouTube and Facebook. But I hope you guys will come and join us for our live election coverage on Saturday night. Kate, especially when it's midnight for us, and tell us what's happening over there in WA. Topher, you put out a good video recently, just segueing back to the Greens. You put out an interesting video recently pointing out a fundamental hypocrisy in their approach to mining and climate.
This also speaks to what we were talking about with the media before, and the way that the media really don't actually do their job particularly well. Here we have the Greens promising on the one hand that we're going to see this transformation of the Australian economy into this net zero carbon economy, which involves trillions of dollars, literally actual trillions of dollars of investment into wind farms, solar farms the size of suburbs, or massive grid scale battery backups so that we can charge our electric vehicles on a rainy day. The scale of this infrastructure project is mind-boggling in its cost, in its physical scale, in its political implications, in its economic implications. And yet, the same Greens that want to do that are also insisting that we're not allowed to expand our mining operations in Australia. So the question becomes, where's that steel coming from? The cobalt, the lithium, the lead, the copper, the concrete, all this stuff, where is that coming from? Now, Bob Brown had a crack at explaining that on Four Corners here it was broadcast in Tasmania. I'm not sure if it was broadcast on the mainland. And I'm sitting there watching it with my jaw on the floor, because here is Bob Brown, the environmental campaigner, telling the Tasmanian people, we don't need to mine these resources in Australia, and especially not in Tasmania, because, oh, the precious, whatever. We should import it from, and he said, Africa and Indonesia, and he named a couple of other places. Now, do a quick Google search on the environmental standards observed by mining operations in those countries, let alone the human rights implications, where we know in Africa children are being press ganged into working in toxic conditions that shorten their lifespans, particularly in the cobalt mining industry in the Congo especially. And to hear someone who is considered a champion of human rights and a champion of the environment saying, hey, let's just import tons upon tons of this stuff from countries that we know have terrible environmental records and terrible humanitarian records, when all of that is in the ground in Tasmania right now. And what's not in Tasmania is on the mainland. Everything we need is here. And we can mine it with mining companies and operators that are known worldwide as being some of the safest, some of the most efficient, and the most environmentally responsible mining operations in the world. I nearly said I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I could believe what I was hearing because it was coming out of the mouths of Greens, and there's no real limit on what you could hear from them. But it just astonished me that they could try and hold both of these things at the same time. We have to spend all this money and do this massive infrastructure project. Oh, but you can't mine it here. We have to import it from overseas. Just blew my mind. So yeah, I made a video about that. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah, we used to have a saying in the old neighbourhood: bullshit has its own sound, and that's what you're hearing.
So
from let alone the worker safety issues in those countries compared to what we have in this country. But yeah, complete BS out of his mouth.
Yeah. Well, it leads into the whole thing about do they actually want to solve the problem, or do they just want to make sure the problem's happening somewhere out of sight? So if you put the problem in a country,
that's exactly it.
Fine with it continuing. I do want to just segue. The time is getting away from us. I did want to have one more proper topic, which means we are going to go over time today. I apologize if anyone needs to leave. Feel free to just tell us you can't handle it. But we're going to sneak over time. We've had a look at a couple of the disappointing policies of Liberal and Labor, and I got to say, despite mostly not having many policies at this election, what they have provided has been pretty disappointing. So uninspiring choices there. The only thing more scary is the potential for the Greens to have balance of power. But we're an equal opportunity set of shit stirrers here. So having ripped on those parties, I do want to note that the other parties, the freedom-friendly minor parties, so-called. The other ones, UAP, One Nation, I'm Up, the other ones you can find. Look, I do think they're better than the majors. Put them before the majors, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But we're not all equal, right? So there are differences between the parties. And there was something that I've been wanting to discuss a little while, but we keep running out of time. So I'm just going to push through the hour barrier here. And that is our friends, and we have done a preference swap with them. And I do think the UAP, United Australia Party, is better than many of the other parties running. But some of the policies they've come out with more recently seem to me, firstly, a step away from how they originally pitched themselves, a step away from freedom. And I think they're pretty piss poor policies, to be frank. I'll just lead off with saying the thing that I posted on Facebook today. the UAP's new mining tax, echoes of Rudd and Gillard, the UAP's proposed new mining tax will not raise enough revenue to pay for the UAP/Greens new education spending woke indoctrination policy, which I don't know why we're talking about a new mining tax or free education for woke indoctrination to start with. But the revenue from the stupid mining tax is not going to pay for the revenue for the stupid education policy. So we're going to have a bigger deficit and more debt. Lose, lose, lose. Higher tax, higher spending, bigger debt, bigger deficit. That is not, I'm sorry, Clive, with all due respect, that is not freedom, freedom, freedom. Okay, come at me, George.
I know I've spoken a lot already, but I have to jump in again. There's a reason why, as much as I'm the one that I believe that coined the phrase freedom friendly minor party and got us all under that same banner, there is a reason we're not all in the same party. There's a reason for that. And the primary distinction, besides the Liberal Democratic Party being consistently freedom focused, even in the areas where we personally don't necessarily like it, we still do it as a matter of principle, which other parties do not. The other big difference is that we have these little things called economists. And you're looking at one seated right there, okay? He's the president of the party. He's an actual economist, and he understands how money works. So, John, tell me, surely adding a 15% export tariff on all the stuff that comes out of the ground means that people overseas are going to be paying it, right?
Yeah, that's the amusing thing about that. I mean, this is the thought experiment. Let's put the economics aside and let's just try and talk common sense, informed by economics.
Sure.
But if Australian mining companies could increase the price of their product by 15% and suffer absolutely no negative consequence, not one less sale, not one flow-on effect, why aren't they doing that right now? Are they just introducing a 15% discount because they just love their customers so much that they just are giving away money for free? I mean, there's a reason they haven't boosted their price by that 15%. Now, the truth is, you may be able to get foreigners to pay some of that. That's probably true. There would be relatively inelastic demand in the short run. The long run consequences could be terrible. But all taxes end up being paid by three groups. It's the companies that are making the profit, the workers who are working in that company, and the consumers who are buying the product. And so the consumers buying this product, yes, it's mostly China, but you've still got those other two groups. And long run, you're just going to get fewer mining operations. So look, it's even if you factor in their rosy scenario, though, it's still not enough revenue to pay for their massive increase in spending. And massive increases in tax and spending are not why I got into politics. I'll put it that way. David, I think you've had a few thoughts about some of the differences between the minor parties. Did you want to share some wit and wisdom? Or are you going to keep your tongue and just be polite?
Oh, look, I've had to hold my tongue for so long now. Look, I'm not impressed. I totally disagree with Topher, this idea of freedom-friendly minor parties. There's only one freedom party, and it's us. This idea that there's other parties that embody, that are based on freedom is not right. And like some of these policies that you're talking about, like this 15% export license, they call it a license so they don't have to call it a tax. It's nonsense, of course. Price caps on loans of 3% is fantasy. What one of the other ones? The Greens policy, UAP policy of free education, same policy as the Greens. Like we're talking, full on socialism here. Like basically they're saying that tradesmen should be paying for gender studies degrees. Like, I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. So I don't like any of these policies, basically.
No, free education is always
I can't think of one that I like.
Their opposition to mandates. I think it's the opposition to mandates that got them all being called freedom parties. But I got to say that is one issue. I think it's an issue that they're correct on, and so God bless them for that. But lots of parties are correct on one issue, right? That does not make them a freedom party. It makes them a party that's correct on an issue. And I hope they stay correct on the issue. I don't want to talk them out of it. No, please stay correct. But has anyone else noticed that when the UAP, up until about a month ago, most of their public announcements seem to be like they were stolen out of the Freedom Manifesto. They often use this debt chart, and the debt chart is directly copied and pasted from the Freedom Manifesto. It was made by Rob Cribb, our policy director. and they kept seeming to echo our talking points. They stole some of our early slogans. Freedom over fear suddenly came out of Craig Kelly's mouth. So it looked like they were copying us early on, and then about 3 or 4 weeks ago, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it looked like they just decided they were sick of copying our homework, and they started copying the Greens' homework.
Yeah. Did you see that video that they made, like an inspirational video, and then it had this really awesome dude with a voiceover at the end, and it took me a while to realize that it was me. It wasn't credited at all. I wouldn't have minded if they had have just attributed it. Like, that's okay. It's in the public arena, but it's not illegal or anything, but it's sort of nice to, if someone says something, to at least say who said it. Anyway. Yeah, I was a bit unhappy about that, but I didn't
non-consensual voiceover, not okay.
Yeah. So someone made a really funny comment about that I should have reposted it and said unauthorized by David Limbrick. Unauthorized by David Limbrick of the Liberal Democratic Party. That was actually a good idea, but I didn't do that. But yeah, I thought that was an excellent suggestion. Unauthorized by David Limbrick. Yeah.
Kate, to throw you under the bus here,
on the Johnny come latelys, and the word freedom is being used everywhere now. Everyone's using it, and it's not a slogan. It's more than just a slogan, and they're using it as a slogan.
It does seem like that. There was some debates done from lead Senate candidates of minor parties recently. David, I think you were in one in Melbourne. I didn't watch it all, but I saw at one stage people were asked what they stood for, and they said the freedom to do whatever you like that is legal. And that just kind luckily, should it be legal? That's the question.
Luckily for that question, I was asked last, and everyone was saying, "Oh yeah, the question was, what should be the limits on freedom, right?" And anyone who knows anything about freedom should have an idea of either the harm principle or the non-aggression principle or something like this. I spoke about the harm principle. The limit on freedom should be where you cause harm to other people. And that's the point at where it's justifiable for the government to get involved. But yeah, lots of the other candidates didn't really seem to understand freedom at all. They said, there should be no limits on freedom, no limits at all. And I found that quite concerning. But
then they say, except for the law. I mean,
yeah. And they equated the law with morality. And of course, any libertarian would know that and I said this in the debate. I said the worst crimes in human history were all legal. Like, everyone knows that. I was saying many of the laws at the moment we consider totally immoral. That's why we're trying to run for parliament to change the laws to get rid of them, right? And
the whole question at play when you ask about where should be the limits on freedom, the question at play is what should the law be? That's the question being asked. Yeah. They said you should be able to do anything you like that's currently legal, but what should be legal?
Yeah. I said, many things that are illegal now, I think that they should be illegal because, if we've got victimless crimes, then they shouldn't be a crime. And I said the limits on freedom, morally, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the party's concerned, should be based around the harm principle and non-aggression principle, in that you shouldn't, something's illegal if you're using force, fraud, theft, or, the government gets involved in contract enforcement. They're the basic things that, would limit your freedom. If you're causing harm to someone either through physical force or defrauding them or stealing their property, it's pretty simple, right? You don't hurt people, don't steal their stuff, then you're basically in line with libertarian principles. But I was quite astounded that they couldn't sort of articulate that.
Yeah, the beautiful saying that it's what every parent teaches their kids as soon as their kids can start understanding things. It's don't hurt people and don't steal their stuff. Just keep that lesson, extrapolate it forward, and apply it to government. Although what I love about our party is even after saying that, some of the Lib Dem supporters at home watching this are sitting there muttering under their breath that we're all a pack of socialists for wanting such a big government. But Kate, do you have any thoughts on this, the comparison of the various minor parties on offer? Do you think you are the best option?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't hear about this UAP mining tax policy, but maybe that's because we're in the state with the biggest economy run by mining, and all these people at the ballot box, they're mostly working in mining or they're married to someone who works FIFO. So first I've heard of that policy. The Greens as well, they haven't been talking about ending mining here, so I don't know about that either. Honestly, in Western Australia, we need to send someone strong to Canberra. We are a one-party state here. Labor has absolute power with a few minor voices that don't really say much. So we can't have Labor federal, Labor state. I don't know if I would be able to sleep at night if I woke up and that was the case. I think Albo and ScoMo are both as bad as each other, and that's why this is the election is the time for minor parties. It's the time for the Lib Dems to hold the balance of power. I have dreams about the lead Senate candidates in the Senate together. That's what my dreams are about. I don't know if that makes me sad, but we're doing everything we can and we need all of your support. If you're in WA, please come and help us this Saturday. You can stay for an hour, half an hour, the whole day. We've got an after party afterwards. So get in touch. We've got a Facebook event up there. So please, if you can spare us some time, help us send me to the Senate.
Thank you. It's a good pitch. I've also seen some work you've been doing out and about, Kate, in your background right now for the law-abiding firearm owners defending their rights. And I believe you have objected to the idea that the Labor government, the Labor state government in WA decided to post a map of exactly where criminals should go to rob people who own firearms, which seems like a remarkably stupid thing to do. But tell us a bit about that campaign. You're getting some traction? You're still on mute there. Sorry, Kate.
Sorry, my background is in shooting. That's actually how I met Senator David Linehelm and how I became a libertarian. So guns are the segue into libertarianism for me. But the police minister here leaked, no, he didn't even leak it. He gave a map of where all the registered firearms are, licensed firearm owners in WA, and the newspaper here published it on the front page. So all you had to do is pick up that map, pick up the front page of the West Australian, and you would be able to pinpoint the homes where legal firearms are stored. Now, we've had people calling, crying because they're scared to stay in their own homes because the criminals can locate where their legal guns are held. I know guns aren't for everybody, I understand that, but they're a pinnacle freedom, symbol of freedom. I gave a speech at the Freedom Rally on Saturday about this. It's something I'm personally passionate about. I know it's not in the Freedom Manifesto, so I apologise for going off script, but I couldn't stand back and say nothing. This issue is very deep in my soul. My family are all shooters and hunters. I grew up on a farm, so I couldn't sit back and say nothing. And tonight I've had so many people come past the gun range and just say thank you for standing up for us, because their voices have been taken away. They aren't listened to. There's no shooters and fishers party here anymore. So it has to be me, and that's what I'm standing up for.
And doing a good job in doing it. Look, we have gone over time now. There's plenty more we wanted to say. I did want to wrap up there. I thought we probably got a bit too excited in ripping on some other parties. I do want to add the caveat that I have seen plenty of good candidates for these other parties that may not be fully signed up to some of the more wacky policies that we've just critiqued in the last 10 to 15 minutes. I know there's plenty of good candidates floating around the UAP, and we look forward to them joining the Liberal Democrats shortly. We'll send you a membership form after the election. So look, there's plenty of good people in those parties, and I'd still say that they, on balance, it's still better to send the message to the majors, to put the majors, close to last. There's some crazy parties out there. And so still preference these other parties that are right on the crucial issues of no mandates, no lockdowns, and no net zero for that matter. So they still have some core issues right. So I'd still like to give them a shout out there. We just wanted to make the point that there are differences, and we think those differences work in our favor. So it was worth pointing some of them out. Now, we've gone well over time. I'm going to wrap it up there. I'll just go around the circle, people, to if you've got any last words of wisdom or words of inspiration. Let's go in reverse order then. Kate, the last one in, first one out. You've already given us some words of inspiration, but do you have anything else as your goodbye?
Vote one Liberal Democrats.
Succinct, beautiful. I agree with everything you just said. David?
Yeah, the future of Australia is up to you and the actions that you take right now. And that means your personal action through your vote, but also your actions through volunteering, through talking to other people and convincing them to, act in a pro-liberty manner. So, it's not over yet. We've got a few days left. Take whatever actions you can. It was John who initially inspired me to take action by joining the party and getting involved in the party. And I'm hoping that maybe I can inspire some of you to take action as well. Your action counts and your action means something.
Well, I can already tell you from many comments I've heard from many people, David, you've already inspired plenty of people to join the freedom movement, and we thank you for it. Ian, some parting words of wisdom.
Well, it's not easy. You get what you work at, and to me, just don't sit. Do get up, help, and as David just said, if we want to win this, we got to make it happen. No one else is going to do it. We have to make it happen collectively as a group. So get out there and help volunteer, and let's win it.
All right, and Topher's quickly trying to update the technology, but Topher, final words.
Unfortunately, David had to go, but look, do the boring. I've been saying this for a while now. Do the boring. We've got a couple of days of boring left. Leaflets into letterboxes, standing on polling booths. Do the boring. Second thing, no matter what happens on Saturday, stay in this fight. I've been in this fight for 12 years. John has been in this fight for 21 years since he started the Liberal Democratic Party, as it's now known, and even longer before that. I cannot begin to tell you how thrilling it is to see so many people getting politically engaged. I spent 12 years wondering what it would take to see this level of political engagement. Now I know the answer. It requires the edge of tyranny. And then people suddenly start getting really interested in politics, right? Don't walk away at the end of this election. This is the beginning. This, I believe, can be a real turning point, but it's only a turning point if we stay in the fight well past this Saturday. This is something that, for me, this fight was going on before I was born. It will keep going on long after I'm dead, but I will play my part for as long as I'm alive to try and make a difference.
Beautifully said. Thank you. So yes, please do stay involved. Please do volunteer, ldp.org.au/volunteer. Get involved. There's only a few days left. And at the end of it, you'll want to be able to say that I contributed to that. I did something. Look, definitely get out there. Get out there in the physical world, not just the online world. Get out there in the physical world. But while you're here in front of your computer listening to this, can I ask you to quickly give this a like, give it a share, get it out there, let more people see this. And not just this, if you see other stuff, the good stuff being shared by Topher, by Ian, the rest of our lead Senate candidates, please give it a like, give it a share, put a comment on it. It helps with the algorithm. So please do get out there, both in the online world and in the physical world, and get out there on election day. Looking forward to it. So we will be back Wednesday, 7:30. That's going to be after the election. It's going to be an interesting wrap up. You'll find us, many of us at least, on election night, a live stream on election night. So look out for that. More information will be available on our social media as it comes up. But in the meantime, that's it for this extended edition, the final Liberty Chat before the election. Let's go out there and get some of these excellent Lib Dems candidates into the Senate. Thank you for joining us. Oh, wait a second. I have to do the authorization.
Now, that means I need to get it on the screen. And I had forgotten that. I'm just getting it now. I'm nearly there. 3, 2, 1, copy.
Beautiful.
And then if I go back to, oh, come on. If I go back to this.
Earlier. All right.
No. Here we go. It's just coming up now, and now I can put it on the screen. And
all right, but no jazz hands this time, fellas, and then no comments afterwards. All right, this has been authorized by John Humphreys for the Liberal Democratic Party, Mount Waverley, Victoria.